In 2009, deep within Afghanistan's remote Nuristan Province, a U.S. Recon unit embarked on a classified mission known as Operation Silent Watch. What they encountered was beyond comprehension. A presence lurking in the shadows, watching, waiting. This military horror story delves into the chilling experiences of soldiers who faced the unknown. As they navigated the treacherous terrain, they reported encounters with shadowy figures, red-eyed entities, and an overwhelming sense of dread. These weren't mere hallucinations. They were real soldier encounters with shadow people that defied all logic. Drawing from classified military missions and paranormal military encounters, this narrative explores the thin line between reality and the supernatural. The missing soldiers' mystery and the unexplained phenomena in combat zones are not just tales. They're warnings. For those intrigued by supernatural military thrillers, war horror fiction, and military folklore creatures, this story offers a haunting glimpse into the unknown. Experience the psychological war horror that soldiers faced and question what lies beyond the veil of our understanding. The mountains of Afghanistan don't forgive mistakes. I've learned that the hard way. Staff Sergeant Marcus Hale, 1st Battalion, 32nd Infantry Regiment, 10th Mountain Division. That's what my dog tags say, but they don't mention the ghosts I carry. 6 months ago, I lost 2 men in Nuristan Province when our patrol walked into an ambush. Their faces visit me every night as I drift into fitful sleep. Hale, briefing in 5. Captain Richards calls as he passes our quarters. I nod, tucking the worn photo of my daughter back into my pocket. 6 years old now, growing up without me while I chase shadows in these godforsaken mountains. The briefing room is stifling despite the mountain chill outside. Maps of the Hindu Kush spread across the table, focusing on a small area near Barj Matal. Recon patrol, Richards explains, pointing to winding routes marked in red. Intelligence suggests insurgents are using these passes to move supplies. Your team will observe and report. No engagement unless necessary. Standard operation. Nothing we haven't done a dozen times before. My team waits outside. 5 men who trust me with their lives. Specialist Ramirez checks his ammo for the 3rd time. Fingers nimble, but betraying his youth. 22, fresh-faced first deployment. Ready to hunt some bad guys, Sarge? He asks with a grin that doesn't reach his eyes. Corporal Jenkins snorts beside him. Yeah, because the last 3 patrols were so action-packed. His sarcasm is a shield, but I've seen how his hands shake after firefights. PFC Thompson sits apart, thumbing his pocket Bible. His lips move in silent prayer. The most devout man I've met, and somehow, the best shot in our unit. SFC O'Neill, our medic, methodically checks his kit. Weather report says clear skies, but the mountains make their own weather, he mutters, adding extra gauze and morphine. Our interpreter, Fareed, stands slightly removed from the group. I notice his eyes darting toward the map in my hand. Problem? I ask. He hesitates. This area. Locals avoid it. Insurgents? No. He doesn't elaborate, turning away to check his pack. I dismiss the unease crawling up my spine. We've got a job to do. 8 hours of hiking through jagged terrain leaves even the fittest men winded. The thin air burns my lungs as we crest yet another ridge, and that's when we see it. A village nestled in the valley below. Small, maybe 15 structures. Stone and mud walls with timber roofs. Not on our intel, I mutter, scanning with binoculars. Movement? Jenkins asks, rifle at the ready. Negative. We approach with practiced caution. 3-man cover formation, while the others advance. But something's off. No smoke from cooking fires, no voices, no livestock, just silence pressing against my eardrums. Contact, Ramirez whispers into the radio. Building on the left, something moved. Hold position, I respond, signaling O'Neill and Thompson to follow me. The village feels wrong. Doors hang open. A pot of rice sits half-eaten, congealed, but not yet moldy. A child's wooden toy abandoned in the dirt. No signs of violence, no blood, no shell casings, just emptiness. They left in a hurry, O'Neill observes, touching the cold cooking fire. Within the last day or two. Taliban intimidation, Thompson suggests. I shake my head. No propaganda left behind, no destruction. Something tickles the back of my neck, the feeling of being watched. I spin around, catching a glimpse of movement between buildings, a human-shaped shadow darting away. Cover me, I command, advancing with my rifle raised. Nothing. Just empty doorways and the mountain wind whistling through abandoned homes. My radio crackles with static. Movement on the... Jenkins' voice cuts in and out. Repeat last over, I respond, but get only noise in return. Equipment failure? We checked everything before departing base. I tap my earpiece, adjusting frequencies. Maybe it's the mountains interfering with signals. Sweep complete, Ramirez reports, appearing around a corner. No hostiles, no civilians. Place is a ghost town. Night approaches faster in the mountains. We need shelter and an observation post. We'll set up here, I decide. Standard watches, radio check every 30 minutes. As I assign positions, my gaze is drawn to a smudge on one of the mud walls. A dark, sooty handprint too large to belong to a child, too elongated to look entirely human. Trick of the light, I tell myself. Fatigue playing games with my vision. But I can't shake the feeling that we're not alone. The mountains swallow the sun quickly, plunging us into darkness, broken only by stars that seem close enough to touch. I take first watch, positioned at the village's eastern edge, with clear sightlines to both the valley and our temporary command post, established in the most defensible building. 2 hours in, something catches my eye. Dark silhouettes on the interior walls of a nearby structure. I didn't notice them during our initial sweep. Like shadows burned permanently into the mud, human-shaped but distorted, elongated. They remind me of the nuclear shadows at Hiroshima, people vaporized in an instant, leaving only their outlines behind. The radio crackles. Sarge? Ramirez's voice is hushed, tense. Go ahead. You hear that? Sounds like whispering. I strain my ears. The wind carries nothing but its own lonely song through the empty buildings. Negative. Location. Western perimeter. It's in Pashto, I think. Been going for about 10 minutes. My stomach tightens. Hold position. I'm sending Fareed. Our interpreter's face tightens when I relay Ramirez's report. What kind of whispering? He asks, his voice carefully neutral. You tell me. We move silently through the village's narrow pathways. Ramirez is exactly where he should be, eyes wide, scanning the darkness beyond our perimeter. There, he whispers as we approach. You hear it? I listen. Nothing at first then, faint but unmistakable, whispered words just beyond hearing range, like a conversation happening underwater. Fareed's face has gone pale in the moonlight. What are they saying? I demand. He shakes his head. No one is there, Sergeant. But his eyes betray him, darting toward the blackness between distant pines, where the whispers seem to originate. Later, in my sleeping bag, exhaustion drags at my limbs, but sleep won't come. Every time my eyelids grow heavy, the sensation returns, eyes watching from the darkness. Not the professional vigilance of an enemy combatant, but something colder, more ancient, patient. Thompson wakes us an hour before dawn, his voice cracking. "Sarge, there's someone out there." I'm up instantly, rifle in hand. "Where?" "Figures standing at the perimeter. 6, maybe 7 of them." We scan with night vision. Nothing but rocks and trees casting long shadows. "I saw them," Thompson insists, his Bible clutched tight in his left hand. Just standing there, watching. I order additional checks, fighting my own unease. High altitude affects the mind. Combat stress manifests in strange ways. There are logical explanations for everything. The whispers, the shadows, the feeling of being observed. I tell myself this as dawn breaks, but I don't believe it anymore. Morning brings no clarity, only new mysteries. During perimeter check, I discover boot prints crossing our defensive line, military-grade treads, but matching none of our team. Could be old, Jenkins suggests, but we both know fresh prints in Afghan dust don't lie. O'Neill finds me checking our supplies. "We need to talk about Ramirez," he says quietly, pulling me aside. Pulse is elevated, pupils dilated. Says he's seeing movement in his peripheral vision. Altitude sickness? Maybe. O'Neill doesn't sound convinced, or the beginning of a panic response. He keeps rubbing his arms where there's nothing wrong. I find Ramirez cleaning his rifle. Standard procedure, but his movements are too fast, too jerky. "Something you want to report, Specialist?" His eyes flick up, then back to his task. "No, Sergeant." A pause. Just felt something crawling on me earlier. Across the village, Fareed sits alone, prayer beads moving through his fingers. I've worked with enough interpreters to know when one's hiding something. "Time to talk," I say, sitting beside him. "What aren't you telling me?" He stares at the mountains for a long moment. "This place has stories." "What kind of stories?" "The Watchers," he whispers. "Those who stand between worlds, who claim the unwary. The village was abandoned for a reason." Fairy tales don't abandon villages. His eyes meet mine, hard as flint. "Then why did you see one yesterday?" "The shadow that moved between buildings." My blood runs cold. I never reported that. We push north after midday, following the valley toward higher ground. Standard recon procedure: establish observation posts with overlapping fields of vision. I take point with Thompson, picking our way through rocky terrain until we crest a ridge overlooking the valley. That's when we find them. Ancient stone markers arranged in a semicircle, weathered by centuries of mountain storms. Strange symbols carved into their faces. "What do they say?" I ask Fareed when he catches up. He traces the markings with reluctant fingers. Warnings: do not disturb those who watch. Do not enter their domain. Thompson crosses himself. Jenkins laughs, but it sounds forced. I should turn back. Every instinct screams that we're crossing a line not meant to be crossed. But the mission parameters are clear. Scout the entire valley for insurgent activity. We push forward, I order, silencing the voice of doubt. Keep tight formation. As I lead us deeper into the narrow pass, the mountain shadows seem to lengthen despite the mid-afternoon sun. I tell myself it's just terrain and altitude playing tricks on my perception. But deep down, I know we've stepped onto a path that doesn't lead back to the world we know. Base, this is Recon Team Alpha. Radio check over. Static hisses in my earpiece. I try again, adjusting frequencies, but the mountains have swallowed our communications. No response? O'Neill asks. I shake my head, checking our GPS. The coordinates flicker, showing positions that can't be right. One moment placing us 50 miles west, the next in Pakistan. Equipment malfunction, I mutter. But my team's faces show they don't believe it any more than I do. We've been advancing for 3 hours through increasingly difficult terrain. The vegetation has changed, the trees growing closer together, their bark blackened as if by old fire, though no burn marks scar the ground beneath. "Jenkins, status report," I call over my shoulder. No response. "Jenkins." He jerks as if waking. "Sorry, Sarge. What was the question?" "Where have you been the last 2 hours?" Confusion crosses his face. "Right here with the team." "What was our last waypoint?" He opens his mouth, closes it. Panic flickers in his eyes. I don't remember." O'Neill moves closer to me. Memory gaps can indicate severe stress, or he doesn't finish. Doesn't need to. We've all heard stories of mountain sickness turning men's minds to mush at high altitudes. A movement catches my eye, distant, at the edge of the tree line. A figure standing perfectly still, watching us. Not hiding, not advancing, just watching. Dark as shadow against the pines, too far to make out features. "Contact, 2 o'clock, I whisper, raising my rifle. "I don't see anything." Ramirez responds, scanning through his scope. The figure remains, visible only to me. As I watch, it slowly raises one impossibly long arm in what might be a greeting or a warning. I blink, and it's gone. "Change of plans," I announce. "We're backtracking to the village." No one argues, but as we turn, nothing looks familiar. Paths we traversed hours ago have changed. Rocks shifted, trees appearing where none stood before. "This isn't right," Thompson mutters, compass in hand. We should be heading east, but the needle keeps spinning. After an hour of disorienting navigation, Thompson stops abruptly, his face draining of color. Before him, in the undisturbed earth, are boot prints. His boot prints, distinctive because of a crack in his right heel, leading ahead of us. "That's not possible," he whispers. "Those are mine, but I haven't been this way." "Someone's messing with us," Ramirez snaps, eyes darting. "Playing mind games," Jenkins laughs bitterly. "Yeah? Who?" "We haven't seen a living soul since we found that empty village." "Maybe we're not looking for someone living," Thompson murmurs. The words hang in the air like smoke. Back at camp that night, tensions fray further. Ramirez accuses Jenkins of moving things in his pack during the night. Jenkins denies it vehemently. I separate them before fists fly, but the damage to unit cohesion is already done. In the darkness of my watch, it happens again. Figures at the corner of my vision. Shadow people, present only in peripheral glimpses, gone when I turn my head. Always watching, always just beyond reach. I'm losing my grip. We all are. Dark clouds build suddenly over the mountains, unleashing a torrent that forces us back to the abandoned village. The storm feels wrong. No thunder, no lightning, just relentless, pounding rain that seems to follow our exact position. "Something's not right," Jenkins shouts over the downpour as we sprint for shelter. He's stating the obvious. Nothing has been right since we entered this valley. We reach our previous command post to find it completely changed. The sleeping bags we left behind are gone. The defensive positions dismantled. The MRE wrappers and other evidence of our presence vanished. "Someone's been here," O'Neill says, checking his medical pack. "Half my supplies are missing." Or something, Thompson adds quietly. Tension crackles between us as we secure the building again. O'Neill corners Jenkins behind a crumbling wall. "You've been acting strange since yesterday. What did you do with my supplies?" "Back off, Doc. I didn't touch your shit." I move to separate them, grabbing both men by their tactical vests. "Stand down. That's an order." They freeze, not at my command, but at something they see on each other's uniforms. Where my hands grip them, black, sooty handprints remain, stark against the tan fabric, exactly like the silhouettes on the village walls. I look down at my own hands, clean. The rain stops as suddenly as it began. An unnatural silence descends, broken only by our breathing. Farid calls me to the village center, where weathered inscriptions mark a stone well. His fingers trace the eroded letters, his voice barely audible. This tells the story. The village was abandoned after several children disappeared. They called the culprits those who walk between worlds. What does that mean? His eyes meet mine. Spirits, not jinn, something older. They take the form of shadows, feeding on fear. They mark their victims first with their touch, which only the chosen can see. I think of the handprints on Jenkins and O'Neill, visible to all of us. The legend says, once they touch you, they never let go. Farid continues. They follow until they collect what's theirs. I take first watch that night, positioned at the main entrance. The darkness outside seems thicker than normal, swallowing the beam of my flashlight. In that impenetrable black, I finally see them clearly. Tall, impossibly thin silhouettes, moving just beyond the light's reach, always watching, always circling. When I turn to call for backup, they vanish. But only from sight. I can feel them watching still. At 2 a.m., we attempt to leave through the eastern mountain pass. Our night vision equipment shows only an unnatural void ahead, a darkness that seems to drink the green glow of our devices. We can wait for extraction, O'Neill suggests, his voice hollow with doubt. If they can find us, Jenkins mutters. I face an impossible choice. Wait in this village where shadows move and watch us, or press forward into darkness that shouldn't exist. Before I can decide, Ramirez's scream cuts through the night. "Ramirez!" I shout, rushing toward his position with my rifle raised. The beam of my tactical light cuts through darkness, revealing nothing but the stone wall where he should be standing watch. His rifle lies abandoned on the ground. No blood, no signs of struggle, just emptiness where a soldier should be. Spread out, I order. 5-meter intervals. Call sign only. We sweep the village systematically, training taking over despite the fear churning in my gut. Our lights cast long shadows that seem to move independently, always just out of sync with our movements. Alpha 1, negative contact. O'Neill's voice reports through my earpiece. Alpha 2, negative. Wait. Thompson's transmission cuts off. Alpha 2, report. Only static answers. Jenkins finds me first, breathing hard. Nothing on the west perimeter. Before I can respond, gunfire erupts. 3 round bursts from Thompson's position. We sprint toward the sound, rounding a corner to see him firing wildly into darkness, his face contorted in terror. "They're everywhere," he screams. "Can't you see them?" I reach for him, but darkness surges forward like liquid night, enveloping him. His scream cuts off abruptly. When the darkness recedes, there's nothing left but smeared boot prints trailing into shadows. "Fall back," I command, grabbing Jenkins by his vest. "Command post, now." O'Neill meets us there, face ashen. "What the hell is happening, Sarge?" No time to answer. We barricade the doors, establish fields of fire. Basic tactics against an enemy that ignores physical barriers. "Jenkins, check the rear exit," I order. No response. I turn to find him standing motionless, facing one of the interior walls. His shoulders are rigid, head cocked at an unnatural angle. "Jenkins." O'Neill and I approach slowly. The wall before him is covered in sooty silhouettes, perfect outlines of human forms. 5 of them. I recognize the shapes instinctively. Ramirez's lanky frame, Thompson's broad shoulders, my own profile. Jenkins turns, and my blood freezes. His eyes are completely black, reflecting nothing. They've always been here, watching us, he whispers in a voice not quite his own, waiting for us to notice them, waiting for us to see. Something shifts in the room's darkness. The shadows detach from the walls, standing upright. Tall, unnaturally thin humanoids with limbs too long, features absent, except for depthless eyes, like holes cut into reality itself. The air around them distorts, waves of cold radiating outward. Farid backs against the wall, prayer beads clutched tight. They are manifestations, he gasps, not demons or spirits as the villagers believed. They're born from trauma, from the violence that has saturated these mountains for centuries. Wars upon wars, suffering upon suffering. They feed on it, grow from it. How do we fight them? O'Neill demands, rifle raised, though we all know bullets won't help. You can't fight what's already inside you, Jenkins answers, his voice still wrong. They've been with us since the village, since you first felt watched. The shadow nearest Jenkins reaches out one elongated hand, caressing his face with fingers that leave sooty trails on his skin. Jenkins shudders, then goes still, eyes vacant. Run, I order, grabbing Farid's arm. O'Neill, covering fire! O'Neill doesn't hesitate. He opens fire into the mass of shadows while backing toward the door. Go! I'll hold them! The shadows converge on him, absorbing bullets like water. O'Neill's scream begins fierce and defiant, then cuts off with unnatural suddenness. The darkness swallows him whole. Farid and I flee into the night, the sounds of pursuit close behind. The mountain paths are treacherous in complete darkness. Farid leads, his local knowledge our only advantage as we navigate by touch and memory alone. My flashlight died hours ago. Batteries drained in seconds when I tried to illuminate the shapes pursuing us. Keep moving, I gasp, though my legs burn and my lungs fight for oxygen in the thin air. We're close to the border, Farid whispers. There's a Pakistani outpost, 3 kilometers east. I can see them clearly now. The shadow people gliding between trees, always keeping pace, never rushing. They don't need to hurry. They've marked us already. The changes started subtle. First, the ability to glimpse them from the corner of my eye, then directly. Now I see them everywhere, watching from every shadow, every darkened space, following, waiting. Dawn breaks as we stumble down the final ridge toward the outpost's lights. Salvation. We made it, I breathe, gripping Farid's shoulder. The border guards rush out, weapons raised. Their faces register confusion as they approach. American? One calls in accented English. Why you alone? I turn to Farid, but my blood runs cold. He stands beside me, but the guard's eyes pass over him as if he isn't there. When I look closer, I notice the sooty handprint on his neck, just below his ear. My interpreter, I start to explain. No interpreter, the guard says firmly. Only you. Come, you need medical attention. Farid smiles sadly. They can't see me anymore, Sergeant. I've been marked too long. I reach for him, but my hand passes through his arm like smoke. The military doctors diagnose severe PTSD, dehydration, and exposure. They sedate me when I try to explain about the shadows, about my missing team. Under my fingernails, dark soot-like residue remains, no matter how often I scrub my hands raw. During debriefing, stone-faced officers inform me that my team is officially listed as missing in action, presumed killed by insurgent forces. Search parties found no trace except one of Thompson's boots, empty in the abandoned village. What about the handprints? I ask. The silhouettes on the walls? They exchange glances. There were no markings, the intelligence officer says carefully. The village showed no signs of recent habitation. I stopped trying to convince them after that. 3 months later, I sit in a sterile room at Walter Reed, my discharge papers pending final psychiatric evaluation. My journals fill a drawer beside my bed, detailed accounts of what really happened in those mountains, what's still happening. My therapists call them part of my processing mechanism. Delusions born from trauma. The package arrives unmarked, a small cardboard box with no return address. Inside, Ramirez's dog tags, the metal etched with symbols I recognize from the stone markers in the valley. That night, brushing my teeth, I see them in the mirror. Thompson, O'Neill, Jenkins, and Ramirez standing behind me, their forms composed of shadow and soot, their eyes hollow voids. Each day they appear clearer, more substantial. Farid visits sometimes, though he speaks less and less. Soon, I know, he'll join the silent watchers that follow me now. I requested transfer to Fort Drum, hoping distance might sever whatever connection was established in those mountains. But as I pack my meager belongings, I notice a fresh handprint on my bedroom wall. The distinctive shape of a hand, too large, fingers too long, pressed into the white paint. It wasn't there this morning. They found new hunting grounds. Or perhaps they were always here, in every shadow of every building, in every dark corner, where soldiers carry their trauma, watching, waiting for us to notice them. Sometimes I wonder if I truly escaped, or if I simply brought them home with me, these watchers that feed on war and pain and fear, these shadows born from humanity's darkest impulses. Either way, I know with terrible certainty that they'll never leave me now. After all, I can see them clearly these days, and once you truly see them, they can finally take what they came for. Have you ever felt watched when nobody's there? Ever glimpsed movement at the corner of your vision that vanishes when you turn your head? They're closer than you think. Watching. Always watching.